Uganda Extra.
Habari ya leo to all the people of East Africa and Karibu to Good Morning Uganda Extra. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko. My guest this morning is coming in from the coast of Kenya. He's the Consul General, Uganda Consulate, Mombasa, Kenya. Ambassador Paul Mukumbya, who does join us this morning to discuss the partnership between Uganda and the Kenyan coast, but in regards to the investment into tourism, a conversation that is rotating around Uganda's tourism and the collaboration and partnership that can be done with the Kenyan coast. Because when you look at the numbers that the Kenyan coast generates every year in regards to the tourism industry, you get to realize that we clearly need some huge partnerships if we are to also leverage from such opportunities as a country and maybe gain from the same situation moving forward. And well, that is what we're going to be having this morning, a conversation that is also coming in at the backdrop of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo that is ongoing in Munyonyo. That is in regards to the Explore Uganda by the Uganda Tourism Board. Well, ours here today is, however, turning our focus on the partnerships that we can come up with, especially for the tourism operators, the private sector players in Uganda's tourism. If you can seek out for the partnerships with the tourism operators at the coast of Kenya, speaking of which, Mombasa, and we've seen many Ugandans who normally go to the Kenyan coast to travel, and others to even hold weddings. These are conversations that we're going to be having this morning with Ambassador Paul. You're very welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Sonko. And once again, thank you, UBC, for hosting me here. I've been here a number of times. You are very key partners to our activities of promoting partnerships and tourism between Uganda and the Kenya coast. So once again, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for hosting me.
Okay, and as we are talking about this issue of the coast and Uganda-Kenya coast collaboration, what does it entail, and what should the viewer understand about it?
The partnership between Uganda and the Kenya coast really rotates around the concept of complementarity other than competition. For many years, Kenya thought that they should compete with Uganda in attracting the numbers. And maybe Uganda also thought that we should compete with Kenya to see who gets bigger numbers. But we realized that we have some unique products. Each of the two destinations has some unique products. Here in Uganda, we have the mountain gorillas in Bwindi, we have the chimpanzees in Kivale, we have the adventure tourism on River Nile, we have the Machon Falls, for example, in the Machon Falls National Park. We have a number of other products which are unique to us as destination Uganda. And then at the Kenya coast, they have the very beautiful beaches, the coastal beaches, with white sands. They have the historical sites like Fort Jesus in Mombasa and the Vasco da Gama Pillar in Malindi. Now when you look at these products, you realize that they cannot be competing because they are different. So we came up with the concept of these products complementing one another, so much so that, for example, if a tourist goes to the Kenya coast to enjoy the beaches at the Kenya coast, on the same itinerary, they can come to Uganda and experience something completely different. We'll see the mountain gorillas, the chimpanzees, the adventure tourism on River Nile, the Uganda Matters Shrine, the religious tourism in Namugongo, the Kabaka Palace in Mengo, the Machon Falls in Machon Falls National Park, the Kampala nightlife. So these are completely different products. So a person who begins at the Kenya coast can come to Uganda on the same itinerary. And then the person who begins in Uganda to enjoy these products that I've just talked about in Uganda can, on the same itinerary, travel to the Kenya coast and enjoy the beaches and other historical sites. So that's how we came up with this concept of complementarity other than competition. And by the way, even before I talk about those tourists from other countries, from America, Europe, Asia, and even the rest of Africa, between us, Uganda and Kenya, Uganda is the #2 source market for visitors to Kenya.
Okay.
Last year, the numbers were about 200,000. And for Uganda, Kenya is the #1 source market for visitors. And last year, the numbers were about 500,000. So even before we want to attract more of those visitors from beyond us, we, the Ugandans and Kenyans, can grow the numbers between ourselves. The Kenyans come to experience what is not in Kenya, and the Ugandans go to Kenya to experience what is not in Uganda. And that way, again, we are complementing one another.
All right. And to you, our dear viewer, I would briefly want to draw your attention to what is happening at Parliament, because the newly appointed police IGP, that is Abbas Byakagaba, has arrived at Parliament for vetting. The appointment committee is expected to be chaired by the Right Honourable Speaker to Parliament. It is Right Honourable Anita Annette Among. And, well, details will be coming in enough continuing bulletins later on today from 1 p.m. So that is footage coming in from Parliament, courtesy of Gloria Guitabinji, who is at Parliament to cover more details in regards to the vetting process of the new appointed IGP, or the newly appointed Police Inspector General in there. So he will be appearing before the appointment committee for a vetting, and that appointment committee is chaired by the Speaker to Parliament, Right Honourable Anita Ann Among. Now, Ambassador, back to you and back to our tourism conversation. Why the collaboration between the coast? Because now my viewer would be concerned. Kenya has got various tourist destinations, the same way we do have countrywide. But in this kind of conversation, we are looking at being very specific to Mombasa. One would wonder, why do we have to, you know, foster this kind of relationship and collaboration between us and Mombasa?
Let me begin by correcting what many Ugandans think. Many Ugandans think that the Kenya coast is Mombasa
alone,
and that Mombasa is the Kenya coast. But the Kenya coast, what we call the Kenya coast, has 6 coastal counties. They have Mombasa, they have Kwale, where we have Diani beaches. They have Kilifi, where we have Malindi and Watamu. They have Taita Taveta. Taita Taveta is the only county among the coastal counties which doesn't have a coastline. They have Tana River and they have Lamu. So the collaboration
is for the coast.
Is with the coast. And why we are dealing with the coast is because we, as Uganda Consulate in Mombasa, you know, we have 2 missions in Kenya. We have the Uganda High Commission in Nairobi, which takes care of the whole of Kenya, including the Kenya coast. Then we have the Uganda Consulate in Mombasa, which takes care of the 6 coastal counties. That's our area of jurisdiction. And the main reason the Uganda government decided to open the consulate in Mombasa is because of our strategic interests at the port of Mombasa, which, as you know, is the gateway for our imports and exports. So really, we as the Uganda Consulate only focus on the coastal counties on the Kenya coast. And it so happens that the Kenya coast is actually the tourism hub of Kenya. It receives the biggest numbers of arrivals, and including Ugandans who, as you indicated at the beginning, go there for weddings, for all of these kinds of parties, and to enjoy the Kenya coast. So the reason is that we, as the consulate, we are mandated to take care of Ugandan interests at the Kenya coast.
And on the element of competition, how can we rather, you know, promote complementarity instead of us competing with the Kenyan coast? And here I'm speaking about Uganda's tourism industry.
Actually, the good thing is that all of the key players have realized that complementarity serves us better than competition. The Uganda Tourism Board is very supportive. Actually, we work very closely with the Uganda Tourism Board and the private sector in Uganda. The Kenya Tourism Board, recently I met some people from Kenya Tourism Board, and they confessed that actually they are copying and pasting our concept and replicating it, for example, with Zambia, which is also their neighbor, to really work together instead of competition. So the tourism agencies have realized that complementarity works better than competition. The private sector, if I tell you the private sector in Uganda, if not only in Uganda but at the Kenya coast, you know, they have got very serious partnerships. I'm talking about the Ugandan private sector, for example. They have got hotels which they have partnered with at the Kenya coast because of the initiatives we have had. They have got tour operators whom they cooperate with. Maybe at this point I should bring in the fact that we have been organizing the Uganda-Kenya Coast Tourism Conferences every year since 2022. We organized one in 2022 in Mombasa. Last year in 23, we organized it in Diani in Kwale. And this year in November, it is going to be here in Kampala. And the enthusiasm, when you see the enthusiasm, the turn up of both Ugandans and Kenyans. Last year when we went for the conference, we had to ask Uganda Airlines to deploy an Airbus instead of the usual Bombardier.
Because the numbers
were too much. We had about 200 Ugandans that
who
participated in the
traveling
conference.
From Uganda
from Uganda. And then we had about 300 Kenyans who attended. So the conference attracted a number of about 500. And definitely, when we are there, it is serious business. So the enthusiasm that has been, this initiative has attracted mainly from the private sector, because the biggest number of participants in these activities are private sector players, not us government. For us, as governments, we only help in organizing and
the
providing,
regulations.
and providing a conducive atmosphere. And then when they go, for example, when the Ugandans went, after the conference, the 2-day conference, they started touring the products at the Kenya coast. They visited Fort Jesus, they visited the beaches, they visited the hotels, they went to Malindi, because they wanted to experience. You know, when you experience something, you are in a better position to sell it, to market it. And then after that, we also brought in about 30 tour operators from Kenya. We took them around Kampala, we took them to Bwindi, we took them to Kibale, we took them to Merchant Falls, we took them to Jinja. We showed them a bit of the Kampala nightlife, because we always market Kampala nightlife because Kampala is the capital city of nightlife in this region. And this is a product we promote. We took them on I don't know if you've ever been on that night bus.
Yes, I have been.
You've been there?
The one that parks at around, the one in Kampala or the one in Kenya?
No, the one in Kampala.
The one that parks around Africana.
Yeah,
I've been around
and goes around in the night.
I've been around.
It's a moving disco.
We moved to Jinja, then moved to Entebbe.
Yes, you've been on it.
A very wonderful experience.
So we took the Kenyans on that bus, and it was a very exciting experience. So the private sector have really embraced this. Because they are making more money. Because if instead of a tourist spending 1 week in Kenya, if a tour operator is able to add an itinerary into Uganda, and instead of the tourist spending 1 week in the region, they spend 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Who is the loser there? It's a win. I always call it a win-win-win. The tour operator is getting more money, the tourist is getting more experiences,
yes.
And we, the governments, are also getting in more money.
True.
So there is no loser in this. So it's really something that has been very well embraced. It is people are asking, when is the next conference? And we hope that the next conference that is happening in November in Kampala will attract even bigger numbers.
Let's look at the investment opportunities for both Kenya tour operators in the country, which opportunities they can actually tap into in Uganda. Then we can as well look at some of the opportunities that our private sector players can tap on at the coast?
You know, in Uganda, we have so many, and we've been working very closely with the Uganda Wildlife Authority and the Uganda Investment Authority, together with the Uganda Tourism Board. They have a set of investment opportunities in the tourism sector in Uganda, which we have been promoting at the Kenya coast to attract those Kenyans. You know, the facilities, I don't know if you've been to the Kenya coast. If you haven't,
I have been.
They really have
to Mombasa.
first-class accommodation facilities, really 5-star. And we've been marketing the investment opportunities, especially in our national parks, to attract some of the rich Kenyans to come and invest in our tourism sector here by putting up high-end lodges. This is something we are doing, and whenever we organize these conferences, we also have a topic promoting investment opportunities in our tourism sector. Although nothing concrete has come up yet, but we have received a number of interested parties that continue to inquire about these opportunities in our tourism sector. But also Ugandans, there are so many, because in Kenya also, and you know, there's a lot of travel even domestically in Kenya. So even, and these Kenyans have been encouraging Ugandans to go and put up, buy apartments. Even if you don't live there, someone can manage it for you. They can stay there even when you are not there, buy houses and whatever. So all these are opportunities, and some Ugandans are beginning to. So investment opportunities are there, but they are not only those normal, what we call investment opportunities, but also we are seeing some tour operators coming up and setting up shop here in Uganda to operate from here. But we are also seeing exchanges about training, because the person at the Kenya coast wants to be sure that when they send a client here, they will get the same level of treatment like they get at the Kenya coast. And even here in Uganda, when a Ugandan sends a client to the Kenya coast, they want to be sure. So we are also opening up those cooperative arrangements where we can exchange views on training, on standards, on how the guides should operate, so that we have the same standards, so that somebody who, these exchanges, we don't get disappointments when the tourists that we exchange don't get the same level of service.
Okay, and let's also try to throw it back a little bit. Some of the key milestones and achievements over the past 5 years that we've been able to see between the collaboration of the Kenyan coast and the tourism players in Uganda, if any.
As I said earlier, we started in 2022.
Okay. So that means it's just like 2 years back.
2, 3, yeah, almost 3 years. But before that, we had organized that time we had not yet focused on tourism. Okay. We started with a symposium, an agribusiness symposium, which, as you know, Uganda and Kenya are key trading partners. Yes. And most of the products that we exchange are agricultural products. So we started with an agribusiness symposium in Mombasa in 2021. We wanted to see how can we deal with the bottlenecks, the tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade. And by the way, because this agriculture also feeds into tourism, because of the value chain, with the food, the agricultural products we produce end up being bought by the hotels. For example, the pineapples that we produce here are having a market in Kenya and at the Kenya coast, because ours is the sweetest pineapple. When you taste a Ugandan pineapple and one from the Kenya coast,
you will see the difference.
Well, I have ended my statement. Yeah? When you taste these bananas, the yellow bananas, what we call bogoya and indizi, there's a world of a difference in taste between the two. So we started with agribusiness. Then in 2022, that's when we had the first conference at the Pride Inn in Mombasa, which was attended by about 250. That's when these partnerships started. And you know, we think we are neighbors and that we know each other's country, but we realized that we actually don't know. The Kenyans confessed, the two operators, that before we opened up their eyes, they used to sell Rwanda for gorillas. They didn't know that in Uganda,
they are more gorillas.
Actually, that there are more gorillas than they are in Rwanda. And for us, that was a milestone for these Kenyans to begin selling Uganda, to begin selling all these other products. They were really old, but they awesome experiences. Just the driving to wind, the experience, the countryside. All these were things that they didn't really know about Uganda. So really, one of the key milestones is opening up Uganda to Kenya, for them to know and actually realize that we have so many products that they can sell. So that was the first conference in 2022 in Mombasa, which opened up partnerships. People started building joint itineraries. Someone who starts here and they have hotels that when I have my visitors, I send them, for example, to Leopard Hotel. There's a hotel called Leopard in Diani, one of the most famous hotels that Ugandans want to visit and stay in. And then in 23, as I said last year, when we organized the second conference and we had about 500 participants, over 200 of whom came from Uganda. Some even had to travel by road from Uganda. And at some point, we just closed because actually we had planned with a venue of 300. Oh. But when the numbers grew, we had to change the venue from one hotel to another because the first venue could not accommodate. And even with the second venue, at some point, we had to say, we have closed registration. So we are sold out. So that, and again, you see the enthusiasm. The numbers growing from 250 and doubling to 500. That means people see value in what we are doing. And that's and then this year, we have already had the Uganda Festival at the Kenya coast.
Okay.
I don't know if you followed the last time I was here, I was talking about the Uganda
Kenya Festival.
No, it was the Uganda Festival at the Kenya coast.
The numbers, let's look at the numbers that were there.
The attendance was over 1,500 Kenyans. We had 4 venues actually. We started in Diani, we went to Malindi. In Malindi, we had 2 events. We also there is a golf course called Vipingo.
Okay.
It is a PG. It is the biggest golf course in Africa. It is the only PGA course, I'm told, in Africa. So we had even golf played there. So we had and then finally we had the final show in Mombasa. And what was on the menu? We took Kundere Troop
from Uganda
to the coast to showcase our culture. We took Ugandan cuisine from Uganda, all the foods that you can think about.
So that the Kenyans and the other tourists can as well.
Can enjoy. Yeah. We took Annie Kansime.
From, that is the entertainment bit.
Yes, she's very popular because she would help us to attract the numbers. And then we also invited Eric Omondi.
He has so many followers.
Exactly. So you can see that
the partnership.
Yes, because and the main purpose of the festival was to expose Uganda to a wider community of Kenyans, the corporate people that can travel. Because previously we have mainly been working with the stakeholders in the tourism industry. But with this festival, we reached, because it was open to everybody that wanted to attend. So really, and even international tourists who were at the Kenya coast at that time, because we did wide publicity. So it was quite well attended, and the feedback we got, we exposed more people, more Kenyans and international tourists that were in Kenya to Uganda. The cuisine was so nice. the the Ndere troop was just, I don't know how to describe the experience of the Ndere troop.
Okay.
So really, and then as I said, we also introduced golf, because we also had a golf tournament. And you know, these golfers are rich people.
Very true.
They have the money.
Yes.
So we have also introduced golf tourism now. And every year we shall, before the conference, even this year, before we have the conference here, we shall have a return golf match, a golf tournament between Uganda and the Kenya coast. And you know, these golfers, they don't only play golf when they come, they also enjoy and spend money. So really, we have had milestones, we have had a lot of achievements, and even government, Uganda government has come in to really strongly support our initiatives through the economic and commercial diplomacy, and they are really supporting us even financially, because we see value in what we are doing.
Well, Ambassador, this forces me to asking, do we have any, for the past 2 years, like you mentioned, have we had any kind of joint partnerships that have seen, let's say, the tourism sector in the tourism board in Kenya and the one in Uganda trying to come up with a project or a campaign that is aimed at promoting this win-win kind of situation we've been talking about?
Last week, we had the second Uganda-Kenya Joint Ministerial Commission here in Kampala.
At the Sheraton.
Exactly, at the Sheraton. And at the Joint Ministerial Commission, we discuss all matters of bilateral interest: economic, social, cultural, political, security. And among the things that we discussed is cooperation in the tourism sector. And we are in the process of developing a memorandum of understanding between Uganda and Kenya in the area of cooperation in the tourism sector. And once this MOU is concluded, it will cover all of these areas so that they are formalized. Up to now, we are doing them, but we don't have a formal channel or mechanism through which we should cooperate. So we are working on a memorandum of understanding between the two countries, and it will guide all our cooperation.
Okay. Yeah. And well, have there been any sort of, obstacles along the way that you think the two governments, as well as those in the private sector, can work along to ensure that we have a smooth flow of cooperation?
In as far as the tourism sector, and I don't want to call them obstacles, but maybe challenges. Okay. A bit of challenges. The challenges that we have between Uganda and Kenya are mainly in the trade, in the area of trade, where sometimes we have tariff and non-tariff barriers. But again, the meeting we had in Kampala last week, which was, by the way, followed by the state visit of His Excellency the President to Kenya, the two countries agreed to follow the East African Treaty, the East African Common Market Protocol, the East African Customs Union in facilitating trade between the two countries. So they agreed, actually the heads of state directed that there should be no more quotas, there should be no tariff or non-tariff barriers in trade between the two countries. So the area of trade has really been sorted out. It is just waiting implementation. But in the area of tourism, really, there are a bit of challenges, but maybe it is just making sure that we have the same standards. The training manuals are the same, so that when a Ugandan general manager goes to Kenya, they have the same kind of experience, they have the same kind of training. So those are issues which we are dealing with and which we are part of what we are discussing in the Memorandum of Understanding. So really in the tourism sector, up to now, the cooperation is moving very smoothly. We identify issues or challenges as we move along, and the good thing is that whenever there are challenges, we have a mechanism, we sit down, we talk and discuss and find a way of dealing with those challenges.
Now let's look at moving forward. The journey so far, 3 years I should say, let me just use 3 years because it would give us a better projection. Moving forward, what are the things we want to look at now? In regards to making sure that we foster the growth of both the tourism sectors in Kenya and mainly at the coast, and then also grow this partnership? Because the main aim now is to ensure that the partnership is sustainable and strong. But what are the foundations that we are going to lay moving forward, with the fact that in the past 2 years, efforts have been put in place and the numbers are increasing, and it shows the trajectory is promising. But now, what are we going to do to move forward, to have this sustainable kind of tourism numbers?
I think one of the things that we have already talked about, really having a formal
understanding and
arrangement for our cooperation, the Memorandum of Understanding. We have to make sure we conclude that Memorandum of Understanding as soon as possible. We have to make sure that the regulation is strict and well, because you know, in this sector, like in many sectors, we have got what we call the briefcase operators, who sometimes fleece tourists.
Exactly, because I also wanted to talk about it.
Yes.
More so when it comes to some of our domestic operators in here, who use it as an advantage that, well, we have, let's say, foreigners coming in, and this tarnishes the name.
So in order to deal with this, we really, even in this cooperation that we are in, we make sure that we only deal with people who are through the associations. No individual can come up, and I remember last year there is one gentleman who really wanted to attend the conference in Mombasa, in Diani. But then he had issues with the Association of Tour Operators here in Uganda, and he had been blacklisted. And he thought he would go around and beat the system, but at the end of the day, he didn't attend. We refused to register him. So we want to make sure that the people that we are promoting are genuine people, they are legally registered, they are licensed, and that they belong to the associations. We have a number of associations. We have the Association of Uganda Tour Operators, we have Togata for guides, we have the general managers, we have a number of the hotel owners. So we make sure that whoever we deal with belongs to an association. We don't deal with individuals. So that's another thing that we are trying to really focus on, to avoid these people who come in to spoil the cooperation, and they fleece and cheat the tourists. And then we are also, as I said earlier, we are trying to make sure that we cooperate in the area of training. Because when we have the same manuals for training, we are sure that the handling of the tourists will be equal and the same. You can't say that, oh, I had a tour guide in Kenya who was very good, but when I crossed over to Uganda, the tour guides are not. So we want to be sure that
we have the same standards.
We have the same standards, even for the accommodation facilities. Many times we say that Kenya, because they have been very stable in their sector for many years, they may be at a higher standard, especially for their facilities. But we are also moving and moving towards that. And those that have come here, they have really appreciated our facilities. But of course also the infrastructure, the roads, which government has put a lot of focus on developing the tourism infrastructure. Last year when we came here with the tour operators from Kenya, there's a group with whom we went. I was part of the group that went to Mashon Falls. And the Kenyans were shocked and surprised that, because from Kampala up to Mashon Falls, we were on first-class tarmac road. And they said, you people, you have really, government is really doing a lot to develop the infrastructure in the tourism sites, and really it must be commended, and these efforts. So when we deal with this, so that we have the same standards, we have the same facilities, we have a memorandum that guides our cooperation. Once we have all these, we shall only continue to grow the numbers. And the numbers, as you have seen, are growing, and they will continue to grow.
Well, Ambassador, what would be your recommendations to our tour operators in Uganda? Because like you've mentioned in your submission, that when you look at the standard at which the Kenyan operators are, especially those at the coast, is way above us. And realistically, it is something that is well observed. We can observe, and we are really sure of that. When you look at the numbers that they have or they deal with annually, from the foreigners that come in, even those that come in within the region that go to tour the coast, there are certain things they are doing right, which I believe some of our Ugandan operators need to also follow. What would be some of the recommendation you would send to them?
Well, that's why we're in this partnership.
Okay.
But I don't agree that the Kenyan tour operators are way above.
No, the standards of operation, I should say.
For the choice of words. They are not really way above.
But they are slightly.
They are exactly, slightly above. And that's why we are partnering and cooperating with them, because we are learning a lot from them. But learning is a process. The Kenyans are also learning some things from us. So it is not that we are the only ones learning from them. We also have areas where we do better than them. So that's why it is a partnership. And since it is not a competition, it is a complement. We are complementing one another.
Give me this, give you this.
Yes, where Ugandans may be slightly weaker,
we gain the strength.
We gain the strength through this partnership. Where the Kenyans may be slightly weaker, they also have things to learn from us. So, and that is the importance. That's the meaning, the whole meaning of partnerships and cooperation. It's not that anyone knows it all. There is nobody who is perfect. We all continue learning, and we shall continue learning from one another.
Well, and indeed, for the Ugandans who have got the chance to travel, I want to believe that you felt comfortable and you felt at home at the coast, wherever you've been able to visit or tour. And you get to realize that these collaborations between the Kenyan coast and the Uganda tourism industry players is the reason as why we are having this kind of partnership, and the reason as why we are having this level of understanding, and why you're experiencing quality reception while you are at the coast. And it's something that we want to push for because with the bilateral relations between the two countries, these are conversations not only around trade, but there is also the economics part of it. And then when we talk about the economy, we talk about trade rather, we then talk about the tourism. And then the aspect of the political relations, which is also very key in regards to fostering this bilateral kind of relations that we seek for in the country. Now, of course, our topic is looking at leveraging Uganda and Kenya's tourism partnership, and trying to see and establishing the Kenya Coast partnership with that of Uganda's tourism industry. Now, Ambassador, as we are summing up with our conversation, what would be your parting shots and, well, words of encouragement to the tourists within the region and the tourism stakeholders?
Thank you, Ndugu Sonko. I will begin with the importance of regional tourism, of promoting regional tourism.
Okay.
Because, we need these European, American, Asian tourists. They have the money, but sometimes there are these advisories that come in. Something small happens, and then the country say, don't travel to country X, don't travel to Uganda, don't travel to Kenya because of this and this.
Yes.
But when we promote regional tourism, it helps us deal with a number of challenges. One, it helps us to deal with that unpredictability of those international arrivals, but also it helps us to deal with seasonality. Because these international tourists, they will travel mainly June, July, August, during when it is summer, and maybe other parts. But most of them save for their holidays for summer. But for us here, we do our weddings throughout there. We travel throughout there. So this promoting tourism within the region helps us to deal with this seasonality. So that's why we need to really promote and enhance and strengthen this cooperation in the region to promote the regional tourism to help us deal with that. And I want to encourage all our people to take advantage of this. And you know, the other advantage I always tell people is that, you know, for Ugandan to travel to Kenya, you are not going to go to the Kenyan High Commission to apply for a visa. You are not going to Ministry of Internal Affairs to apply for a passport.
All you need is a national ID.
All you need is your national ID. You get onto a bus if you cannot afford to travel by air, and then you cross over to Kenya. And the same happens for Kenyans. So it is even cheaper for us to travel within the region without all these other challenges that we go through, air ticket, visa, whatever. So we need to promote this regional tourism. So that is one of my parting words, to really encourage Ugandans, Kenyans, and all East Africans to travel more within the region. But two, as I said earlier, we have this upcoming conference in November, the Uganda-Kenya, the third Uganda-Kenya Tourism Conference, which, by the way, we have already started organizing for. So I want to encourage all the tourism stakeholders to begin to prepare to attend this conference. It is going to be much bigger than what we have seen. Maybe even the numbers of 500 will be surpassed. So I want many of the tourism stakeholders to take interest and attend. We are also mobilizing a lot in Kenya to make sure that the Kenyans come, and all the Kenyans that will come here, we shall take them around the country. As I said earlier, it's easier to sell something that you have witnessed. So the Kenyans that will come here will be taken around the country of Uganda, so that when they are selling, they sell something that they know. So I encourage as many of the tourism stakeholders, both here and in Kenya, and even beyond. We don't stop others from the region from attending. And then the golfers. Because as I said, every conference every year will be preceded by a golf tournament, because we want to tap into those monies, those rich golfers.
Yes.
So we're already working with the Uganda Golf Union and the Kenya Golf Union to mobilize as many golfers as possible, both from Uganda and Kenya, to attend the second golf tournament that will take place here in Kampala. And again, the golfers, we want them to take interest in this. And as I said, this will also be an annual event. And by the way, you may have noted that many of the national parks in Uganda, near them is a golf course.
Yes.
So really, after playing the golf, they will be enjoying the Ugandan tourism products, and they spend. When they travel, they spend.
Obviously.
We want them to leave a lot of that money here. So that's what we are doing, and we encourage you, everybody, to take interest in this so that we grow the, you know, tourism, the beauty with tourism is that it cuts across almost all sectors of the economy.
True.
And the chain, really, many benefit from this, and the more. And you may also have noted that last year what we noted is that most of the delegates in the Uganda delegation were youth, were young people. So that means that the tourism sector is also employing a lot of our youth. And the chain of tourism, somebody is buying food, somebody is buying crafts. So really, let's encourage more and more of tourism, because it also helps us in job creation. So those are the parting words. And of course, to thank you, UBC, for always being our reliable partners in promoting our events. And thank you once again for hosting me.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Pleasure has been ours having you this morning. And to you, our dear viewer, we're looking at leveraging the Uganda-Kenya Coast Partnership for investment and tourism, a conversation that is rotating around tourism and creating awareness about the investment opportunities for the traders and the private sector players between the two countries, that is those in Uganda and those in Kenya. And well, of course, for all of you who have not got the chance to travel to Kenya, I think it's high time you also decided to put it on your bucket list and see yourself going to the coast, or even within inland Kenya, You never know. You can experience something different that you've not been able to experience in Uganda. And then you can also invite our brothers and sisters in Kenya to come and experience and explore Uganda. Also, with our conversation this morning, I have reminded you that it is happening at the backdrop of day one of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo that is ongoing at the Speak Resort Munyonyo, that is at the new convention center. So you can be part of that, by the way, the Powate 2024. The entrance fee is just 10,000. So go there and see the beauty that Uganda has to offer for tourism, or Uganda's tourism industry. My guest this morning has been Ambassador Paul Mukumbya, who is the Consul General, Uganda Consulate, Mombasa, Kenya. And thank you very much once again, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
To all the viewers out there who have been with us from the time we started at 6:30 a.m. till this hour, we'll be back tomorrow, Friday, for the GMU Friday edition. So make sure you wake up with us and get your mornings inspired. But for now, keep it UBC. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja.